And Superintendent, if you would please call the roll.
Trustee Wedge.
Here.
Hold on. Let me try that again because I wasn't on here. Trustee Wedge.
Here.
Trustee Brickler.
Present.
Trustee Ross.
Present.
Trustee Grigsby.
Present.
President Holt.
Present. All right. And is there any public comment on tonight's closed session agenda items? Seeing none, it is 6 o'clock and we will recess the closed session and reconvene an open session at 7. All right, it is 7 o'clock and we will reconvene in open session. And Clerk Grigsby, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Superintendent, would you please announce the action taken in closed session?
Yes, there was action taken in a 4 yes vote, 0 no votes, and 1 abstention. The student named in discipline case 2023928 is readmitted to the district. Given that we didn't have a unanimous vote, I'll read out how each board member voted. Renee Grigsby, yes. Jason Wedge, yes. Sarah Brickler, yes. Greg Holt, yes. Jamie Ross, abstention.
Thank you. And I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. All right, and moving on to item 6, and that's public comment on things not on tonight's agenda.
First, Patsy Everly.
That's for the people. Gotcha. Okay. So I don't really have a presentation other than my disappointment. The unsustainable situation at Auburn is so unsafe. Students are learning to not learn. 6, 7, 8, I'm going to say mostly. They're crowded into these little teeny ramps. So the pushing, the shoving, the fighting is every day. And I have great support, but we lost a special ed teacher, reached out to me today, who left yesterday. we cannot count on what we have without your help somehow. Jamie's taken some AEF funds that we had to bring on the Entrepreneurship Academy, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am for that. Trainings tomorrow, which are fabulous. 6 teachers out tomorrow without subs, is what I last heard when I left. Nobody wants to work at our school. That is the word on the street. How can we make it so that we liked coming to work and helping our students who are falling through every hole? I don't know anymore, you guys, because I know I can't go on like this, and I'm a pretty strong person, and I've been in this for a long time. But I see your faces and I feel hope, but I don't. And I know you mean well, and I know you want to help, but the office needs training. Now we may lose another office person. I'm sorry, we cannot function without secretaries and how to do all of the scheduling and all of the things that go with middle school that was not put in place before we started. So I'm just going to leave it at that, because I am begging you to help us before I run into every teacher every day who's in tears, trying to figure out how they can maintain the boundaries that were set up for us, were set up for failure. You cannot put all these kids together in this small of an area that we work in every day. I have to lock my door to make sure the littles don't get involved in fights or big kids grab and fondle. That's happening. I'm going to leave it at that.
Teresa Zaro.
Hi, I'm Teresa. I am talking about something totally different, but I did want to reiterate the comment about substitutes. My kid's at Skyridge, and there seems to be a lot of substitutes always. It's been a problem for the last few years, and there have been some classes that don't have a substitute. Literally no adult supervision in the room. That's pretty basic. But what I wanted to share with you today was actually the garden at Skyridge. I know it's an extra thing, but it's my favorite place on campus, always has been. And we've worked over the years to really develop it into a special place for all kids, a place for teaching, science and art, and also for relaxing. It's just a special place that you can relax and exhale in a way that you can't anywhere else on campus. I believe the garden program is falling apart due to its reliance on volunteers. Us parent volunteers have limited bandwidth. We're spending our time coming to board meetings and trying to do as much as we can, but it's limited. And I've heard that the master gardeners who committed to supporting this program haven't been present at Skyridge. I don't know what the other 2 campuses are up to. But I think it's gotten to the point, I remember seeing this slideshow from the previous superintendent over and over and over again last year that promised a continuation of all our clubs and activities. And it really made me cringe every time I saw this slideshow with a bunch of activities that depended entirely on volunteers. And volunteer programs just aren't dependable enough to put on a slideshow promising that you'll give it to us next year. I think we're at the point that the district should consider a stipend to a staff person who is willing to take on this program, but can't do it just out of the goodness of their heart. They're already stretched past their breaking point, but perhaps a stipend might make that feasible. It could, and I think we need to move our garden program to district-wide, an economy of scale where we have the same lesson plans deployed across 3 campuses And we have a lot of the building blocks in place. We have lesson plans that I've been working on for 7 years, and we have parent docents available to show up on the day of. We just need a champion, and I think we need to pay that champion for it to be realistic to continue. Thank you.
Sarah Hudspeth.
Hello, Board of Trustees and Dr. Myers. I am Sarah Hudspeth. I'm a first grade teacher at Auburn L this year. This is my third school in 3 years, like many of my students. It's their third school in 3 years. I wanted to take a moment to talk about how actions speak. And when we promise thriving sports programs and playgrounds and advanced classes for middle school and then don't deliver, that shows that that's not a priority. Likewise, when our bargaining unit is asking for dates to put on the calendar and the first available date is into the second trimester of the year, that's showing us it's not a priority. Your teachers are trying to make this ill-advised transition work. We are on the brink every day, breaking up fights, dealing with behaviors, asking for admin's help when they are so busy with other behaviors that we're feeling like less and less of a priority. We gave you our sunshine proposal in September. It was delivered to the board. The middle of November is unacceptable. You are showing us we are not a priority over and over. Last year's bargaining didn't close until May, within a month of the end of the school year. That's way too late. We're trying to retain teachers. We're trying to show that this district cares. It's really hard to show that with the information that's being presented and with the actions of this board. AUSD needs to do better. We need to prioritize our teachers and our staff.
Mike Woodley.
Good evening, board. Thanks for having me. Just a little insight on my day. Woke up in Chicago Park, 6:15, drove down, got here by about 6:45, did my day's work. First day, sub 90 degrees. Outside on Auburn Elementary's blacktop without shade is just, it's tough. I've already endured heat illness one day this year and I had to take a day off. So did that day, couple of meetings. Then did the Nevada County Lab up to get my kids from the theater in Grass Valley, dropped them off at Chicago Park, gave the wife a kiss, right back here, ready to do my thing. So I was the athletic director at E.V. Kane for 3 years, 2 years prior to this. And I am the athletic director, bilingual teacher up at Auburn Elementary. Last year, the talk of transitioning to a TK8 model across all 3 sites was something that was a little concerning as far as someone involved in athletics and PE. I came to a couple board meetings, shared with many of you my concerns, and I'm here to talk today about the unintended consequences of that decision. Perhaps not so unintended. Last year we had 3 sports going on at the same time currently at E.V. Kane, the same 3 sports that are currently going on over at Skyridge, Auburn Elementary, and E.V. Kane, excuse me. And last year we had more kids participating in those 3 sports. It was shared that with the move to this league that there would be even more opportunities for kids to play. 3 sites, 2 grade levels, more opportunities, right? The numbers say that that's not really true. We have less kids participating. We are unable to field teams for both levels in multiple sports across multiple schools. Last year at a meeting where we sent someone who represented AUSD to our new league meeting to share our thoughts about joining the league, it was said that we could field all schools, all levels, all teams. Simply not the case. It's currently 3 times the cost for officiating, 3 times the cost for coaches, 3 times the cost for athletic directors, and 3 times the cost for equipment to get these sports up and going, 3 times the uniforms as well. Lack of access to facilities. E.V. Kane's basketball team is kicked out from their own gym because The decision that was made now brings Auburn Elementary's basketball home games here and Sky Ridge home games here. So on nights where there's games 3 days a week, the basketball team from E.V. Kane is kind of kicked from their gym, forced to practice outside. And this second gym is no longer accessible for reasons you all know. That then means that there's no home basketball games for Auburn Elementary, no home games for Sky Ridge. Coaching, difficult to find them. We had that same challenge last year when we had less teams, less sports, same challenge across the board. It was talked about transportation being offered. All attempts at transportation for our teams after school have not been met. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort. Have a great evening. I'm heading back home to be with my family. I love you. My wife. I'm so sorry for moving. Safe travels home, everybody. Thank you.
Ron Patchett.
Thanks for the opportunity to address you. Just a quick background on myself. I've been a resident of Auburn for 43 years. I jokingly refer to myself and my wife as refugees from Silicon Valley. I had the privilege of moving a major division of a laser company up here in '81, Coherent Radiation, at the airport. My wife was an educator and counselor here at E.V. Kane. So I have a deep love and care about E.V. Kane. I note that there are 2 open seats on the board and 4 enthusiastic applicants for those positions. One gives me concern. Emily Travis proudly announces on her website that she and her husband drove across the country to object to COVID vaccinations. I have a 40-year career in technology, including what some of you may know of as MRI. A colleague of mine got the Nobel Prize for his work in that field. I applaud people who have strong opinions and are willing to state them. My concern here is that if Emily gets a position on the board, it's probable that she will look to influence health practices at E.V. Kane. And I believe COVID protection and other vaccines are critical to the health and lives of our kids. At risk of saying a statistic that you may know, over 1 million people died in America because of COVID. And early on, there were claims of it being a hoax, and there were objections to some of the practices. It was a complicated virus that was not fully understood at the beginning. Perhaps the mask mandates were overstated, but at least they were overstated in the direction of being more cautious rather than less cautious. So to the extent possible, I would encourage whoever remains on the board to establish some guidelines that would minimize defective practices in vaccines and others. I have friends, colleagues who object to any kind of vaccine. Well, happily, the US has finally wiped out smallpox. And we're warned by health professionals that another pandemic could be around the corner. Again, I encourage you to establish some guidelines that would prevent wrong information being communicated. Thank you.
Lisa McBroom.
Good evening. My name is Lisa McBroom, and I'm a kindergarten teacher here at E.V. Kane, and have been in this district for over 25 years. A year ago, a decision began to be discussed about moving our district to a K-8, and that decision was quickly voted on, and we moved forward with the plan. Teachers, communities, families, the mayor, the Placer County Superintendent asked the board to slow down, but the board moved forward, and now we are living with those decisions. Teachers had to pack up district curriculum. We moved schools. We set up new classrooms, paid money out of our own pockets to get these classrooms up and running. Yes, we were compensated for 40 hours of work, but many of us logged in 80, 90, 100 hours just packing up district curriculum, moving personal belongings, and setting up new classrooms for our littles. Now, some of the things that the district promised they would do that we have yet to see happen. Air conditioning units are still being worked on here at E.V. Kane, which are displacing students out of their classrooms. Bathrooms have not been retrofitted for littles. It's a running joke that they've asked the principal to put in little stools so they can reach the soap dispensers to wash their hands. And as you can see, you look around, this is our playground. Where is our playground here at E.V. Kane? We were told maybe the fall. We were told maybe December. Now we hear rumors it may not happen. It may be going back to the architecture for redesigning. It might be in the front of the school. We don't know. Parents are asking. Littles are asking, when are we going to get a playground? This was wonderful in the beginning, but they're getting tired of it. They're getting bored of it. They need to have some gross motor skills. They need to climb. They need to jump. They need to run. Couple other things that we are still working on, cleaning. We are using way more classrooms now at each school, and cleaning is not getting done. We have hand, foot, and mouth, strep, stomach flu going around like crazy, and our tables and desks are not being cleaned. And I will be the first to admit, littles are gross. We need their surfaces cleaned. Last year and the year before, we were given quite a bit of COLA, cost of living adjustment. We all know that inflation is up. Our insurance went up this year. And out of that 15%, we were given a 1.5%. We need to do better for the teachers. And we wonder why teachers and staff and paras, custodians are leaving. We're not offering a decent living wage for them to stay here in Auburn. Our children of this community, the families that stayed with us, deserve better. So I'm asking you to please prioritize teachers and get us on the calendar, and let's start negotiating. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving then to association comments, starting with AUTA.
Good evening, School Board and Superintendent Meyer. We are officially in October. We've lived through 40 days and it feels like over 100. Each school site has had their own special issues. While Skyridge and E.V. Kane have naturally occurring separate campuses for 6-8 students, Auburn Elementary does not. Students do not have enough time to own their new school, as there are many rules. Which direction do students travel and to and from class? Wet bathrooms, there's one set for the entire 6-8 students. How they act in class, how they act in campus due to separation from the smaller students. These are all issues that have been discussed in detail at staff meetings and my articulation with our superintendent. There is a huge need for a VP at Auburn Elementary. There are fights in classrooms, in front of classrooms, and during the school day. We do not have enough staff to safely monitor all of the students in all of the locations. And when we had our school threat scare not too long ago, I looked at the school safety plans that each school is supposed to have and is supposed to be updated. One of the things I found out is the class systems that go through all of the classrooms. There are classrooms that do not have access to intercoms. So what happens when we do have an actual emergency and those teachers are not informed? I specifically looked up Auburn Elementary's plan, and it said to follow ALICE protocols. Well, I can tell you only a few staff in AUSD has officially been trained in ALICE training. That actually happened at Alta Vista, a school that you closed, and we took 2 staff development days because it was so important for our staff to be trained because it was such a high priority. Out of that staff, there are only 4 of us that are still working in AUSD. Well, I know Dr. Meyer is working on a school district safety plan. This has not been addressed until now. The board oversees these decisions that affect our students and staff. Where is the accountability? This leads to the topic of staff retention. We have no stability since we are constantly losing staff due to lack of respect communication, wages, and working conditions. Our classrooms are not being cleaned. Bathrooms are not being cleaned for students. Tables and common areas are not being cleaned. While we are approaching cold and flu season, we cannot afford to have students and staff out due to unclean surfaces. We need more support and custodial staff. And what about our Title I funding for our students who need extra support? What is the percentage at each school site? Are there more at one school site than the other? If so, how is it fair that we are a Title I district, but many students are at a specific school site? One of the things that I worry about is how our current school board is working, or there is a lack of working together. Members of our school board tried to take away our division and inclusion statement. We said we don't need it anymore. The possibility of having like-minded individuals in positions of power that do not speak to all of our stakeholders, respect staff, or are willing to have conversations with others that have different views is frightening. We need diversity in our schools, our staff, our community, and our school board. Nothing was accomplished by all being the same and not moving forward to challenge, change, and redefine what education is and can be. We need diversity in our literature so we can understand perspective. We need it in our history so we can learn about the past and make sure it doesn't happen again. We need the help of the Latino Leadership Council. We need the arts and artists back in our schools to creatively teach students who are struggling with attention, body regulation, impulsivity, and social emotional regulation. While some believe that this is not true, I say come into any classroom in AUSD and you will witness students who are struggling emotionally and socially. We do not have enough staff to help with the needs, and teachers are not equipped to help these students as they cannot access learning because of these roadblocks. Instead, we have classrooms where students are yelling at staff, flipping over desks, punching students and staff, tearing apart classrooms and school supplies. Some SEL schools skills include to set and achieve positive goals, to feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, to make responsible decisions, and understand and manage emotions. All of these skills are necessary both for educators and students to function well in the classroom, the community, in college, and your careers. I ask you, what kind of learners do we want to grow in AUSD? Those that follow or those that change the world because of their creativity, social and emotional genius, empathy for others, perseverance, and problem solving in a global community? In solidarity, Sarah Liebert, AUTA President.
All right, thank you. And do we have CSCA comments tonight?
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Myers. Classified staff are working really hard to feed the kids, clean bathrooms, clean classrooms, get gyms ready for sports, supervise kids, walk the campus even in triple digits, answer parents' questions, phone calls, take attendance, help kids with classwork, speech, maintain the school grounds, and many other countless jobs that keep the schools and district running. The lack of substitutes to fill in when there's an absence by classified is something that's getting really old. Classified employees are here are caretakers, but knowing that no one will be there to fill in when we're absent or that the workload gets pushed onto coworkers, this puts a burden on us. We often feel we can't take the time we have earned in our contract. We need to figure out a better solution. Most of the surrounding districts pay much more, and adding to that, the lack of substitutes, and it's getting to be too hard to get and retain staff. We're confident that our new superintendent will be a strong partner in working to resolve this situation. We're all on the same page, realizing that we need to ensure that we are providing the best we can for our students and that we have enough staff to cover. Thank you. Cindy Bell, President.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8. Our consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to pull the consent agenda? Okay, so looking for that head nod from you. Okay, seeing none, I move that we approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll second.
And Clerk Grigsby, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Absolutely. President Holt,
Aye.
Clerk Grigsby, aye. Trustee Ross,
Aye.
Trustee Brickler. And Trustee Wedge.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. Okay, moving to item 9, 9A, amendment to the 2024 board meeting schedule.
So we brought this forward last time, and we've made an adjustment to the recommended day for the December meeting. This is in order to account for EDCO that requires that we hold the governance, the organizational meeting within 14 days of the beginning of December. Sorry, I lost the date in the top of my head, but it has to be after a certain date and within 10 days. Let's look it up. But it essentially has to happen within that window. And then the date that we had previously is too early. So we have to hold it after the 11th. The date that we brought forward last time didn't work for everyone. So we're bringing forward the 17th. Let me pull this up.
So on the rationale, it says the 18th, but it is the 17th, correct?
Oh, it does. Sorry. It has to be held within 15 days of the second Friday. That's the date I was missing. 15 days within the second Friday. So that's why we have to move it. But I believe the 17th is correct. Sorry, we had it incorrect. The 17th was the date I believed worked for everyone. That's what we brought forward.
Which is Tuesday.
It's a
Correct,
Tuesday?
and that's what's on the attachment.
Tuesday.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? We're all settled. I move that we approve item 9A, the amendment to the board meeting schedule.
I'll second that.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Okay, item 9B, the 24-25 LCAP federal addendum.
The 24-25 LCAP federal addendum accompanies our LCAP and outlines how the federal funds are going to be spent within the LCAP. And staff recommends approval of the LCAP federal addendum.
Are there any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, I move that we approve 9B, the LCAP federal addendum.
I'll second.
And all those in favor? Aye.
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 And those opposed? See none, motion carries. And to 9C, approval of Prop 28 Arts and Music in Schools Funding Annual Report.
So we have a presentation tonight on the Prop 28 Arts and Music and School and Funding. And go to the, I'll wait for the next slide. So this is exciting that we voters approved Prop 28 and we have dedicated art funding for our schools. So a little background on the measure. It was approved in November of 2022, and it required and established the ongoing program for supporting arts and instruction in schools in 23-24. Funding can be used to supplement and not supplant art music instruction. So if we already provided that, we can't use this money to pay for that same instruction. So we have to hire new teachers or offer more services. The requirement is 80% staffing on salary and wages and 20% minimum on materials and services. So the majority of it has to be spent on staffing to provide these services. funding was first allocated in 23-24 and must be spent by June of 2025 for the 23-24 school year. And what we have tonight is just an overview of how that works. The 23-24 funding was $170,000, and funding was not spent due to delays in fiscal guidance from CDE, because we have to be able to advertise for positions, build a program, and make sure that we have the ability to make sure that it fits within our existing programming. And it just wasn't enough time to do that. And so we have to make up for that. And I'll let Brittany talk about that.
So what you see there is the dollars that we received through Prop 28 in 2023-24 at 170, and the following year, meaning this year, at 227,000. During the TK-8 transition, it was discussed on how we would utilize these funds to fund some teaching positions related to art and music. So what we fund out of Prop 28 at present is a 1.0 FTE drama teacher. This is a teacher who serves all sites. It's part of our wheel. So we have drama, Spanish, and leadership all within the wheel. Currently, drama is being taught at Auburn L and will rotate at the trimester. Then we have a 1.0 full-time art teacher position. We had 2 previous existing art teacher positions. So those were allocated, one to EVK and one to Skyridge. And the additional FTE for art funded out of Prop 28 is serving Auburn Elementary. Then we have a 1.0 VAPA teacher. We had a VAPA teacher previously, a 1.0 in the budget. So this is an additional VAPA teacher. And those 2 VAPA teachers serve TK through 5, visual and performing arts education, as itinerant staff. So that's what we're doing this year out of those funds. In addition to that, there's materials. Jeremy will talk a little bit about that on the next slide in more detail. And there are extra funds that we're asking to be rolled over and to be utilized we have to go to CDE for a waiver. And that waiver is to ask to spend those carryover funds from 23-24 this school year so that they're expended by June 25th. And it allows us to include up additional monies above and beyond the 20% that is the standard percentage they're asking for supplies out of Prop 28. It allows us to ask for more than 20% in this inaugural year so that we can fund things that might be needed to start the program. And we can use that for things related to music, drama, and facility improvement. Did I leave anything out? Okay, that's numbers, so you're up.
So additional FTE. So this year, the anticipated staffing cost will be $220,267. 20% is $44,000. So to spend the remaining funds within the time limit, we'll need to get a waiver for $132,710. And that can go for any improvements. Could be stage improvements, it could be art classroom improvements, and just, get these programs up and running. So tonight we have to ask the board to approve the report of not spending any money in 23-24 and move forward with asking for the waiver for the additional funds to be spent.
This is Trustee Brickler. When would we have the opportunity to see what you intend to spend the, if the waiver is granted, the additional $132,000? That was kind of jumbled the way I asked it. There's $132,000 that we're asking for in a waiver. I don't know how long it'll take to receive an answer, but we don't have a lot of time to spend a lot of money. And I'm just kind of curious when we will learn more about how that might be utilized. I heard some examples you used, such as art classroom improvements and stage improvements.
Yeah, Skyridge is looking to do some more stage improvements, and some of the classrooms at Auburn L could be upgraded. We're talking about flooring or just other things, but it's really driven by the sites. And so we're asking the sites to come up with what their needs are, and it really can't be should come from them from a grassroots level. So whatever the teachers are needing, I've met with the teachers at the beginning of the year and offered that, let's build a great program. Let us know what you need. And, anything that you need will be considered.
Musical instruments, whatever those are rather expensive.
Yeah. So Musical instruments will be a huge cost as part of our band program, and that's something that Christy Aday at Skyridge is already working with EJ, our band teacher, on what that might look like. The facilities piece that Jeremy was talking about, for example, a number of our art rooms, so at Auburn, we were talking about cleanliness, those are carpeted rooms, which is difficult, as you can imagine, with art supplies being used to clean. So things that we could do as a portion of that cost is hard surface, it's like stick tile flooring kind of thing, so that they can be mopped easily and cleaned when they're doing art projects and things like that. But instruments will be a huge part of that for sure.
I'm Trustee Ross. So I've been fortunate enough to sit on Create California and work with other superintendents around California on how to utilize these funds and best advocate for these funds to be used. You've already gotten my email, which I appreciate your reply. There's a couple things that I've seen that have been working really good in other schools. One of the school has a mariachi class in which the students are participating, and they're seeing a huge engagement in those schools. Another really amazing thing was a music library where students could rent instruments to see if they like them before they do join band. And that was highly successful for their band and their band projects for future bandmates. But I appreciate the fact that you are looking at every avenue. Unfortunately, I think flooring, it kind of bothers me a little bit, knowing that that money should go towards making sure the kids have that arts and music. There's also exceptions that you can apply for so that the 80% can be lowered down depending on what you need and the needs of your school. So we can find ways to get more money for kids to get more supplies or whatever it is they do need. And it's just really imperative that we use this money so it doesn't go back to the state, so we can keep getting this money. Like, this is a really big benefit. And I'd also like to see it go towards more electives. If we can provide more electives through this funding, that would be highly beneficial for our students. So I know we're just starting and this is our first transitional year. I just want to give some extra input so we can consider these options and see how to best utilize this for engagement of our students.
Thank you.
And I think to follow up with one more question, do you have the actual strategic plan for the Proposition 28 money that we could see? So, or is this basically it, like the FTE? This is kind of where we're at, or is there an actual strategic plan for this?
It's going to be part of the SIPSs that the sites have, and so it's going to come from them. What their needs are.
Okay, thank you.
You'll see those next time. They should be on the November agenda.
Are there any additional questions?
I just wanted to thank you for doing whatever you can to retain those funds and make sure we can utilize them.
So quick question. Are we voting tonight as far as these additional funds on this waiver of what they're being spent on, or is that going to be brought back to the board at a later time?
So they're going to be brought back through the SIPSA process about what they want for the school site. And so when you approve the SIPSas and that plan, those items will be in there. And we're approving tonight that we didn't spend any money in 23-24.
Yeah, the only approval is for the report that has to go forward to the state saying that we're rolling over those dollars. SIPSAs, and then when the waiver comes through, we can let you know that as well. And then we would spend them according to SIPSAs.
So gotcha. So the things that you talked about were just examples.
Yeah, we wanted to give you, so one of the board requests from last time was an update on how we're expending Prop $28. So this item sort of combined the two. The approval is for the report, but we also wanted to give you a snapshot of some of the things that we're spending the money on currently and things that may be added based on what we're able to do through the waiver process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Not seeing any other comments or questions. With that, I move that we approve item 9C, the Proposition 28 Arts and Music in Schools Funding Annual Report for 23-24.
Second that.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Seeing none, it carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And moving to item 9D, board policy updates. First saw these in June of 2024.
So at the last board meeting, I brought first read for you on this very small packet of board policy updates that
300
exist in this
pages.
binder. If you have any questions, I think you were going to email me ahead of time if you had any. I didn't see any, but if you had any questions on any of the board policies, otherwise, this would be second read. And if you are comfortable voting for approval on the updates, then that would also be done at this time.
Quick question. I'm still going through this and, is there any of these policy updates that, definitely need to be decided tonight, or can we roll this over to the next board meeting so I can, there's still a few things I'm working through on some of these, policy changes and some, information I'm seeking.
That's up to you as a board. If you want to move forward, we can push it to November. If you wanted to vote that way, absolutely. The board policy updates, it's a lot of HR and things like that. But it can wait until the next meeting if that's what the board votes on to approve.
When is this due by, our decision? Do we have to vote by a certain time?
Not necessarily that we get every 3 or 4 months, we will get a slew of them. So a new one just came through. I'm meeting to talk through all of those board updates in the next week or two. So potentially what you would then have next time is a first read on another set and voting on this set, but that's completely up to you guys in terms of how you would like to do that.
I didn't see anything that jumped out at me that needed to be done this month. So I think we can, pull that and reattack this next month then. My take on it.
So move this over to next month.
How does the board feel? Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. All right. So we'll readdress that next month then.
I think we have to make a motion to do that. I'm
Okay.
trying to hold on here. I gotta so we do it right. I think we can move it. We make a motion to continue on to the next meeting as an action item. So
All right.
someone would make a motion to
Yep.
not vote tonight and move it forward to the next board meeting.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move it to, next month's meeting as an action item.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. All right. 4-1 carries. Okay. And moving forward then to item 10A, board direction and requests. Do we have updates on last month's?
Did you get sorry, I didn't get the nay vote. Did you get the nay vote? Who was Sarah? Okay, perfect. I'm sorry. I just keep it for myself. Give me 1 second. Okay, updates on board requests. So we had a number of them last time. So I've responded to all of these board requests, but let me walk through how that was done. So from Trustee Ross, we had transportation accessibility. That was covered in superintendent report at the board meeting on 9/11. I'm going to list the following items that were given an email update to the board on 9/29. Those 4, all coming from Trustee Ross, were what do our GATE and accelerated learning programs look like moving forward? Where are we with Project Lead the Way? What's happening with the upcoming cell phone mandate in terms of what went through legislation? And what does the onboarding process look like for new staff, specifically classified staff like campus monitors? And then also one from President Holt, which is he would like to know more about the interest in Rock Creek site by community. All of those were responded to on the 29th via email. And the last one from Trustee Ross was on utilization of Prop 28 funds in the current year. And that was a presentation we did this evening. And that was all I had, unless someone felt like there was one I missed.
Thank you.
I think just one question on that is I apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head if the training for staff, specifically campus monitors, what that looked like.
Yeah, so there's an onboarding process that's a number of things. Obviously, one is going to be paperwork, and the other are things like public school works trainings and things like that. Those are all done prior to a person coming on. Well, public school works, they have a window of time, about, I think it's 30 or 45 days to do them. Then there's some onboarding that happens on things like Well, I'm going to talk about my superintendent report, but I'll mention it now. So for example, active supervision would be one. And then this year we've been talking about de-escalation strategies that might be helpful for groups like campus monitors. We're looking to offer both of those things in the fall. So right now we're looking at half days during parent-teacher conferences that classified staff would be working, but not necessarily attending parent-teacher conferences. So we can offer some of those trainings. The campus monitor training for active supervision can be provided through our insurance group, schools insurance group through SIG. And we met with them yesterday or the day before, I can't recall, but this week to talk about what that might look like. They sent us updates on what's available and we're working on scheduling dates for that, which will go out to classified staff, and Cindy will see from us shortly when we get all those dates solidified. The changes that we're looking at making for next year are that when we have staff onboarding, we would, if at all possible, people we hire in the summer to work at the start of the year to make sure that they had time prior to the start of school to receive those trainings, because we have an opportunity at conferences like I'm mentioning, and then also our first professional development day for this year, that would be November 1st, where we would typically offer those. But that means that people are working for 2 or 3 months before they get those trainings, and that can prove difficult. I think that's what we're seeing some of the concerns with this year. So in outgoing years, that would be the plan, but for this year, we're looking at November trainings.
I think we can move on to new requests then. Do we have new requests from the board?
Yes. It's probably not a new request, but a new request. Back in August, I requested that we put on the agenda for discussion item to discuss our current immunization that we require from students. And I missed the September meeting, but I can tell you I was disappointed because that was not on the agenda. Instead, I got an email explaining that. And I would like to add this to the agenda for discussion for next month's meeting. And because I think this is something that needs to be talked about in the public. And I'm sure, some of the parents and whatnot might have some questions as well. And also I'm working through, I've come across some new information that we actually might be in a situation where we can be liable and can be sued for parents per our current policies that we're demanding for students to be enrolled in our district. So my new request was for next month, I would like to have a discussion openly about our immunization process and go from there.
Okay. So, Trustee Wedge, I'm not sure. Well, as we develop, we'll see if we can do it for next month. I think as I understood your request in August, I thought it was something that would be handled by an email. That's how I'd taken it. So, but I think that's certainly something we could end up if we get 3 people over here saying, let's put it on as an info item.
Okay.
Actually, we don't even need 3. We can put it on as an info discussion. I think we'll just have to, as we flush it out, see if it'll fit on next month's agenda.
Okay.
Could you clarify, you said that we don't need 3 in order to proceed?
For an agenda item. So I think that's different than a request that's going to dictate staff time. So
I don't think that a presentation about immunization requirements that come from the state, I think that creates a burden to staff. That's time spent on that's not spent elsewhere.
okay. So no, just like all of us can request something to go onto the agenda, or anyone in the public can request something to get on the agenda.
It's not always honored though.
Correct. So.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are you asking for a presentation, Jason, or a discussion?
A discussion, and I would be more than happy to do a presentation myself to the board, so we don't have to worry about staff taking away time from staff, because as we've heard tonight, we are understaffed in a lot of areas, and this is something that I'll be willing to present a presentation to the board.
So if this is an info and discussion item, seems like that's just something that we would be discussing then as a board in public.
Correct.
I can't really think of a time when we as trustees have given a presentation on a topic as individuals. I don't know that they're, I appreciate that your intent is to take the burden off of the staff, but I don't know if we want to be in a situation where any of us can provide presentations to the group.
So as I understand it, though, Trustee Wedge would be providing a presentation, probably encompassing his argument and his points as well, not necessarily speaking as the authority that this is exactly what the school district is doing. So it's not like the same as getting a presentation from staff or from the superintendent, where this is our policy, this is what we're doing. I wouldn't be surprised if Trustee Wedge brings some of that into it according to our policies. But otherwise, it'd be well within the bounds for us to be able to have an info and discussion and bring evidence in or a presentation in support of an argument. It may not have been done, but I don't see why you wouldn't be able to bring in, some facts and figures in a presentation or information that you wanted to share as well in public.
I mean, I tried to do that when we were talking about the charter school months ago, and I tried to bring in people with expertise on the topic, and my offer was declined. And so I just don't know that we want to go down the road of any of the topics that we as individuals feel strongly about, that we can have a platform to provide presentations to the board.
I think I'd have to go back and look at our specific conversation on that and how we came to that one. I feel like that was part of an action item, not as an info and discussion item.
Correct.
When
I
it was,
don't know that it was to provide context for the decision making around the charter. So I think it was more of the intent was to be an informational item to inform the board about options for charter schools.
okay.
In advance of a decision that would be made. I think we have a lot more pressing issues, hearing from our staff about behaviors that they're handling, just hearing that they are at their breaking point. I just don't think this is a priority. But
Yeah.
you may have three that want.
I mean, we can talk about this, but I disagree because we are actively losing students to our district, and this is one of the reasons why.
And Trustee Bricker, would you turn your mic on, actually? I'm not sure how much of that got covered.
Okay, I can.
So I'll leave it at that, and I think we should, save this argument, for discussion when it gets added to the agenda.
It wouldn't be an action item, just info and discussion. And it seems like there is also public interest that's come up tonight about vaccines and immunization policies.
So if we are to have a trustee give a presentation on vaccine policy, wouldn't we also want to hear from the district's perspective about vaccine policy? I mean, it seems like we would be over reliant on a presentation of information from one perspective rather than what is the perspective of a school district in terms of implementing California state law.
It's part of an info and discussion item. I'm sure we can provide that perspective as well. I'm sure you'd be happy to. I'm sure we could ask the superintendent to speak to school policy and state law as well when we get to it.
I could, as an option, I could take what I sent in an email in terms of what is the law around ed code for immunizations, what are the required immunizations, what types of exemptions are permissible, and what has happened in Auburn in the past in terms of what was in the email. It would be fairly straightforward to put that into a presentation format, put it on an information and discussion item, and then in the board comment and discussion portion following the presentation on the ed code, that would open the forum for discussion from there and would provide an opportunity for everyone to share, if that seems like a reasonable option for November.
So you would be laying the groundwork about what we know from ed code. And then we could have open discussion among trustees.
Correct. Yeah, I would lay out in terms of what's required for us under ed code, how we meet that requirement, what that's looked like in Auburn this year, in the past, things that have occurred in the district in terms of we do an audit annually. It comes up on Friday the 13th in December this year. But what have our audits looked like in the past? And we won't have the information on our current audit because it would be prior to that. But I could bring that forward at November, and then the comment and discussion section that happens at the end of the kind of the last slide of every presentation would open the forum for discussion at the board level.
So, Trustee Brickler, are you opposed of another trustee to actually give a presentation?
I haven't really seen it done. I don't know that we want to put ourselves in a position where we're spending time at our meetings where any one of us could decide that we want to give a presentation to the group. I don't know that I think that we typically ask like our educational experts to give presentations on topics that we are interested in. I don't know that we want to start having trustee talks on various topics.
Well, that is.
Would you like to hear me give a presentation on?
If something that you're passionate on, something that you want the board to be well informed on, absolutely.
I mean, I did try to bring in someone who had charter expertise, but I was shot down.
So Trustee Brickler, no, on that, I think that was part of an action item, and you were trying to bring somebody in to speak and give a presentation as part of the action item, somebody from a different school district. Then you brought us some ed code that you weren't reading properly, and you were saying that we couldn't do something that was illegal, but you weren't addressing it properly, right? So you had an opportunity to say your piece, and then we got public comment from the person that you brought in, right?
There was public comment.
Correct, from the person that you asked to come in to speak. So while they weren't giving a presentation on the action item, they were afforded the opportunity to speak.
Just like any member of the public.
Correct.
So I'm just going to bring it back to, I feel okay with Dr. Meyer coming up and starting that conversation and us continuing the conversation. I do not feel comfortable with any one of us going and giving our opinion piece. But I do like the idea of Dr. Meyer starting that conversation.
I think that's a good way to word it. Yeah. I'm sorry, this is Clerk Grigsby.
I think you have your 3 for Dr. Meyer to start that conversation.
Thank you. So on that, what I'd be concerned about though is if there is something, when we're just talking and we don't have we can't just put it up on a screen. There could be issues where we want to, as trustees, put something up on the monitor. It could be part of an argument, could be part of an argument about finances, could be anything else. I don't think it would be good precedent to say, well, we can't bring in evidence or something that we want to present to the board as part of our argument, not put it up on the screen there. So if we're going to be bringing that in for discussion, I don't see why we wouldn't bring that up.
Prior to you all being on the board, Trustee Ross, excuse me, we were able to send that to the superintendent, who would then send it to us individually so that we had it during our meeting and we could follow along with whoever was saying. So rather than making that a public discussion and something for everybody, it was brought to us. We were able to see it. We knew exactly what was going on. So I would personally would love if Jason Wedge wanted to send us that information and we can evaluate it so that we know what the discussion points are. And if we have something to add to it, we are able to do that without being sidetracked.
So once a document's created, like a trustee creates a document and shares it with with the majority of the board, it's a public document that the public has a right to see. So if I was to send an email right now about the meeting to the entire board, that is supposed to be something that would be on the agenda that is available for the public. So that's something that we would have to have public.
We can have it public.
So, it could be attached to the board agenda. Maybe that's how we could do it. We just attach it as an attachment. But like I said, though, if that's something that Trustee Wedge, in this case, wanted to be able to, I don't know what he wants to do. Say he wants to make a PowerPoint presentation and put it up on the screen so we can look at it together and the public here can look at it. That'd be just like discussing anything else that we want to bring up if we required or felt we needed to put it up on the board. Just kind of like we used the whiteboard 2 years ago to be able to keep track of where we're at on different things.
So Trustee Brickler, may I ask, would you like to also do a presentation? So then it would be a Jason Wedge, Dr. Meyer, Jason Wedge, Trustee Brickler presentation.
I just don't think this is my priority right now. The most pressing need that I'm hearing is from our staff that they are in crisis and I would rather talk about what we can do to support them and how we can mitigate some of the behaviors on our campuses. And I think that this could be tabled for another time. It's just not a priority for me right now.
That's noted. But it looks like we are good to move forward with putting this on the agenda at a future date. Whether that's next month or another month, we'll have to determine based on just what's going into the agenda. Are there any other new requests?
Trustee Ross, I do love the idea of bringing in an intern vice principal for Auburn Elementary and just kind of looking at what that possibility is, what the pricing would be, how, is that a most effective, or how we can offer some extra support. And then my second request would be, how are we looking for substitute teachers? I do remember in the past us saying we had a relationship with Sac State. What does that look like? Or how are we looking for our substitute teachers to bring them in? What does that look like?
Do you have a preference on how we provide that information? Can I go with the first one? So support options with potentially a vice principal being one of them, bring that forward as a presentation in terms of what are the options, what are the costs? Is that what you're asking?
I think the public would be interested in hearing that as well.
So informational item.
Yes, please.
And then regarding the, how we're looking for subs.
An email would be wonderful.
Okay.
Are there any additional new requests? All right, not seeing any. So moving on to item 11 and beginning with the superintendent.
Okay, so we're in October. Anyone who's ever worked in schools knows that this is probably the hardest month any of us deal with. So first and foremost, I would like to say thank you very much to all of our educators in Auburn, all of our staff who work incredibly hard and do incredibly great work. I've been in a number of classrooms and seen great things happening, from relationships with kids and what people are doing and how students are engaging on their campuses. And so we appreciate you very much. So thank you for that. A few little things. I was going around trying to pick principals' brains and what I've seen on campuses and just make sure I have like one little nugget in the month of October, so we feel grateful for something at each site. So I would like to say congratulations. She was here earlier and she left, but you'll have to tell her we mentioned her name, but congratulations to Crystal McDonald, TK teacher at Sky Ridge. She was honored by Auburn Chamber last Thursday night for their Educator Award. And Christy Day, her principal, spoke quite extensively about Crystal. I made a joke to Peggy. She said, okay, well, who's going to speak, you know, as if we're going to fight over it. And I said, don't you know that educators hate talking in front of adults? But Christy did a lovely job and said so many nice things about Crystal and all that she does for not only her students, but to support her school community as a whole, and really make Sky Ridge a wonderful place for everybody. So congratulations to Crystal, and we appreciate her very much. Thank you to Mr. Ramos, Stephen Ramos at Auburn L. He hosted myself, Mr. Holt, Mrs. Grigsby, Trustee Grigsby on Friday last week for 8th graders as part of their history class. We went around and did student voices, talking to them about how the TK8 transition has been for them. Answered questions. We did some high-level conversations around kids asking, you know, why were these changes made? And we had conversations around finances and what that looks like, and recognized to them that probably doesn't matter much to you as 8th graders. You just want to know how it impacts you. But that is the answer to your why questions. We want to make sure we get there. And then we got down to the nitty-gritty important stuff about what would help them enjoy their experience more. So we heard about food choices, chicken patties, chicken fingers, peanut butter and jelly, and I learned what frozen strawberry cups are. They're super into those. So just wanting more food choices, some more special things and autonomy for middle schoolers. We talked about what here at EV Kane is called Kane Station and snacks and what that could look like and rewards for them as middle schoolers. And also their desire to want to do more with some of the younger students as well. They even mentioned sight word busters in particular and how they would like to be a part of that. And be a part of the campus with the younger kids. So there's things that kids are looking for that we can do. There's some things they're looking for we can't do, and we tried to be as honest with them as possible. But we talked about what the word compromise means and how important it is that we honor them as best we can within the confines of what we're able to do. So that was great. So thank you to Mr. Ramos for letting us do that. We'll make our way around to the other 3 school campuses shortly, and I'm sure we'll hear much of the same, but it was lovely to talk to the kids, and they did a great job. At EV Kane, their sports program here, Principal Mayberry couldn't speak highly enough of how fun it is to watch all the kids and how much people have stepped up to coach. So we have teacher coaches, but we also have parent coaches and some community member coaches for cross country basketball. And then our PE teacher here is coaching both flag football teams. And we do have some students playing up. So Mr. Woodley spoke to that in terms of fielding teams. So we do have some 5th and 6th graders even taking opportunities that are open to them when we're fielding teams. We can play kids up, we can't play them down, but they are doing that and they're having a great time. So in that regard, we're able to incorporate more kids into the sports program that are, getting to see some things they wouldn't have seen before. So that's great. For teachers and staff, we have some exciting PD stuff coming up. We have our own PD day on Friday the 1st. That'll happen here of November. That'll happen here at EV Kane. So staff will all get agendas for that in about a week and a half here. And board members, you're all welcome to come. We'd love to have you. We'll start at 8 o'clock in the Dragila gym and then kind of move on from there with a couple different things that'll be going on. In addition to that, we have some opportunities for teachers specific to what they teach, subject level or grade level. So UC Davis Math Project is running their Saturday series. We've had middle school math teachers and all grade level math teachers be part of that before, and it's been great. So we have an opportunity for that coming up starting on the 19th. Some teachers are signing up. And then our TK teachers working with the California Subject Matter Project, that begins in December. That's also a UC Davis collaborative, but it's being hosted at YCOE, Yolo County Office of Ed. So that'll be exciting. And then on the behavior side, PBIS conference technically started today with pre-conference, but the big part of it is tomorrow and the next day. So we have sites represented, people from all 3 sites represented going to that. And then Sarah Liebert had talked a little bit about the safety piece. We have behavioral threat assessment management training happening for staff. That kicks off on the 1st as part of our PD day. It'll be a half-day session for team members, site team members, and then we'll continue that at the end of November to wrap up our BTAM training being offered by Cal OES, Office of Emergency Services. And then we will be doing Alice in the springtime for everyone so that we'll have everyone trained. The good news is, because we split the difference here, we have Auburnell under sheriff, and then we have our 2 other sites under APD, but all law enforcement that serve our schools are training on Alice, and even our SRO that's at EV Kane and Skyridge is being trained as an Alice trainer. So our trainer will be someone that we know well. So we'll be working on that in the spring. I'm excited to see that come through. And then as we had talked about, we're working on active supervision and de-escalation strategies that will target our classified staff who work with students most often during the school day in the toughest part of the day, which is anything unstructured. So that's typically the hardest part. Upcoming, we have the PD I talked about. Next week, Renaissance Fair happens here on Friday. So come by and see that. We'll have all of our 7th graders here at EV Kane dressed up and doing all kinds of Renaissance Fair kind of stuff. I don't know. Do we have turkey legs? I'll show up if there's turkey legs. Just kidding. I'll show up anyway. But and then our next board meeting is on the 13th of November. That's all I got.
Thank you. This is President Holt. I'll keep my remarks brief. Just want to speak to the safety piece, really, and that's, I know the superintendent's had these conversations with APD and with Sheriff Wu directly about school security, about integrating that security plan across the district, and regarding the Alice training. So looking forward to that as that builds up. It's not something that we can just push a button and have it in place. It takes time to build those community and partner relationships. Regarding the fights and behavior that's being brought up, I just hope that those are being reported so it can be addressed appropriately all the way up. So if teachers are reporting these incidents as they happen, that way the administration and then the district can take the steps they need to take. I know we're aware of a number of things, but make sure that they're being reported. Like the superintendent said, Clerk Grigsby and I were able to go to Auburn for Student Voices last week, and some of the behavior was appalling. One classroom I went in, I counted 5 students with AirPods in their ears. Don't know. I imagine the 6th one was somewhere. I just couldn't see it. Saw 3 girls passing a phone around, 1 student playing a computer game on his Chromebook, and another with his face down the entire time. But what I didn't see was the staff members say see the teachers say anything to their students. So we've got to enforce behaviors, enforce discipline in the classroom. That's something that as the board we can't do. We can try to make sure that the supports are in place, working with the superintendent. And so far what we've seen is she has a plan to develop things out, but it takes everybody participating, and especially parents. And that's with some of these TikTok threats and other things that we've seen. That's not something that happens within the classroom where kids aren't supposed to have their phones. A lot of that's happening at home. And so there's a huge parent responsibility here to pay attention to what kids are doing online, how they're using their social media, and quite frankly, what sort of behavior is acceptable or not. I was walking at a different school site, and a couple kids who are older kids felt it was appropriate to start walking behind me and loudly saying how much they didn't like little kids. And then finally one said, "I effing hate little kids." And when I turned around and said, "Hey, do you want a conversation about it?" Initially they said yes, and then quickly they said no, they didn't. But they felt comfortable to speak like that around their fellow students and then to me. So it was surprising. But again, that's stuff that really has to start at home. We can't expect teachers to change that sort of behavior right around. We can expect you to enforce that in your classroom and when you hear it and when you see it, but a lot of this comes at home, starts there. So that's a responsibility that our community has to support their student and support the community by making sure their kids are going to be coming here behaving appropriately. So regarding some of these threats too, especially like that recent one where there was a photo of Evie Kane, we're certainly not unique to these sorts of things. It's happening nationwide. It's so easy now with the internet for people to be making threats to mass spamming school districts. I mean, just go to Google News and type in school threat hoax. It's happening every day somewhere. So we are responding, though. I know the district's responding with law enforcement as appropriate. So it could be really easy for someone's student to share something online, and it could have life-altering consequences for them, whether they intended it seriously or not. So really just hope that parents are paying attention to what their students are doing and that they understand that the school district and local law enforcement are taking it very seriously, regardless of how the student may or may not have intended it. So we certainly hear the concerns about safety and security, and it's something that the district is taking very seriously. So with that, I'll pass it on down.
This is Clerk Grigsby. Quick notes of, gosh, all the things that have been going on this month. I went to a PTC meeting. It was an amazing turnout. I hope that all of them are like that. Get involved. We assume so much happens at school and we forget that we need to be involved also. The garden, it's parents, it's absolutely, like you were saying, it is volunteer, but that is exactly what we need to do. We need to volunteer and we need to get involved. We need to be the campus monitors. We need to be the coaches. We need to be there more often. And absolutely schedules, this is some people's second or third positions, and we are trying to be involved and get everybody else involved. Student Voices was amazing. It was so interesting to not only see the kids in an environment that I haven't been in a very long time, but it was amazing to not only see what we are doing, what we have been working on, and what our plans are going to look like. So it's going to be better with more involvement from everybody, parents, teachers, it's parents, students. I was telling some of the students, especially, you know, the sports will be better with involvement. Their snack shack will be better with involvement. They want more sports. They want it will be amazing if they see their friends playing, get involved. I told my daughter the other day, I was like, well, go to a game. Let's make it a game of the game. Go to a game and tell me what you see. Get excited for your schools. Get involved. Bring the kids to the games. If nothing else, see what it's like. Thank you.
Hello, Trustee Ross. I first definitely want to thank Miss McDonald. I've had the pleasure of working with her for the past 3 years in drama club, and she really does put her all into everything. So congratulations to her. I know we have a lot of teachers that put in just as much work and don't get that recognition. So I definitely want to just shout out our teachers and the fact that you sit through classrooms and make this happen. Thank you so much. I also want to give a shout out to the Auburn Police Department, who really were on the security issue. We have an incredible community. And I got a call that night from Lieutenant who let me know that he would be here at school and that they followed through with that. Also, the sheriffs have been really helpful. I also want to give a shout out to the Placer County Master Gardeners because we did hear from them and they are trying to get back into the schools. I know Auburn Elementary just put out an application so that they can come work on that garden. I'm really excited to see what happens. Also, Latino Leadership Council. I was really fortunate to sit in a meeting with our superintendent and our principal, Pet Key, at Auburn Elementary and Latino Leadership Council and talk to them about giving our staff some extra training, as well as providing some stuff for our children after school and really working with our community. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. You heard we're starting. I run a company called Beats Lyrics Leaders. We do a lot of youth programs, and we were fortunate enough to come bring some of our members over to Auburn Elementary, and we're going to start an an arts integrated entrepreneurship academy where we'll be working with our 7th and 8th graders to come up with presentations and showcases on potential businesses that they could start for problem solving. And this will allow us to get the community involved where we can start linking them with mentors and bring those mentors into our schools as a panel and hopefully forward that with some of the students. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we couldn't have done that without Woodley. So I want to give Woodley and Sarah Liebert a really big shout out because they've been working really hard to put together programs and make sure that things are working for our teachers and staff. I did have the honor of joining Create California. Create California works on Proposition 28 as well as integrating arts into our curriculum, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. We do have more money coming, and I'm thrilled. I also joined up for the Auburn Economic Development Commission, so we'll be seeing how everything fits within the city and how we can develop our education thoroughly with the impact of our city and community, and also First Five Commission. You guys know I love my children, so if we can help with anything, I'm really excited for that. The last thing I want to say is a lot of you have reached out to me, and I just feel really grateful. My nephew passed away this weekend, and it was really hard. And when this happened, I immediately thought about grief and the grief that our students and our teachers and our staff are going through. And we do all grieve differently. And for some of us, we're still grieving from some of the changes. And you can tell us to get over it, but you don't get over grief. It just gets easier, right? So a lot of our students are grieving. And for my child, he acted out. And he's punching and he's hitting, and he doesn't do that. And so to really be able to sit down as staff and as teachers and just ask the children, how are you, is really, really important. Because a lot of them are not feeling good and they don't know how to explain that, so they hit, right? And to your point on discipline, when you can't control, it's Maslow's law. Like if you can't control your trauma, it's hard to be able to focus. And so for a lot of kids, putting headphones in, music helps them focus, and music is their key to get them through that moment. So really utilizing and relying on arts and music is a huge, huge healing process. So I don't want to demean that. I understand what you're saying, but I also just want to say that we all grieve different, and some of those kids needed that in that moment. So just bear with us as we make these transitions and be with your children, and just thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing.
Trustee Brickler, I have just really been struggling when I hear from staff because there's so much support that they need, and I don't feel like I'm able to adequately respond. I mean, one concrete thing I've heard is that they just need more bodies, more like responsible adults on campus. They need fingerprinted, obviously. But so for like one thing that I heard that I could do that would help our staff is to show up for lunch duty, like to show up at Auburnell for their middle school lunch and just be another person in the cafeteria who's helping keep the peace and just to show up in a physical way to support the staff, because it doesn't feel like there are enough adults to go around. But I'm just so sorry for what our staff is going through and how much they are struggling to try to hold it together and make this transition happen for our students. And just want to acknowledge, what a hard job it is to be an educator just at baseline, and all that we've been through as a district in the last 4 years. It almost makes like when we first started and it was in the midst of COVID, and deciding when we were going to go back to school almost seems, relatively easy in retrospect compared to this moment in time. It feels like it's one of the lowest moments in my time as a board member. And I really want to work with our administration and figure out what we can do to better support our staff, because even when things are feeling really chaotic at the district level and we're managing a lot of change and repetitive years of extreme change, I've been so grateful for the way that our staff managed to give our students the best experience they can. Sometimes it feels like our students they're insulated from what's happening at a district level because of the hardworking staff and the way that they prioritize their students and give them the best experience that they can. So I'm just forever grateful for all that you're doing, and I'm listening and I'm trying to figure out what I can do to help. I just appreciate that you are bearing the burden of a lot of changes that you asked, that you advocated against, and how hard that is to be in that position. So I'm realizing that one of the things I was really hoping we would hear more about, do we have, one thing I hadn't heard tonight is when we have more information about playground implementation. And so if you could please provide us an update about when we can expect to see those kind of changes, 'cause that would be really helpful. Because I think that's what I hear a lot from community members is just, even at schools like Skyridge and Auburnell that I thought were kind of ahead of schedule, we're still not seeing progress on some of those structural changes related to the TK8 transition. So anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for continuing to pull it together and hold it together for our students. I really appreciate it. I want to acknowledge too that administration is working so hard. It's not that I don't think administration is working hard. I just think that there is so much change to be managed, and we have campuses that are completely having to rebuild their culture and reestablish who they are, and really kind of like start a new school, and how hard that is. So with students attending Skyridge, I feel like I'm in a little bit of a bubble because the school has not had to weather quite as much change as the other campuses. They're still obviously undergoing a lot of change, but anyway, I still really think we're feeling the effects, and we will for some time to come. I am really trying to remain hopeful that we're going to get there, but right now feels like a really kind of low moment in what we're hearing from our staff about what they're dealing with. Thank you.
All right, I guess we'll end it with me. And I'll keep mine really brief. So due to past seasons, I'm probably the least one here on the board that's been able to actively spend time at the school campuses, because the school campuses aren't open at 4 a.m. and they're usually closed by 4:30. But seasons are changing, and a couple weeks ago, I was able to spend a couple hours. Thank you, Dr. Myers, for assisting me at Auburn Elementary. Sorry I couldn't visit all the classrooms, but I do look forward to spending more time and visiting the classrooms. And I do have to say, after walking that site and seeing what I have seen, I do recognize the challenges that you guys are facing. But I just want to remind that, change is hard, challenge is difficult. But I think once we get past this and we go through this, it's just going to strengthen us. You guys are going to be a stronger school. It's going to take some time, but I really believe that. And I do plan to spend more time. Sorry, Miss Liebert, I didn't visit your classroom. You're first on my list next time, so I love to come visit you and just use me however you see fit, and we'll just leave it at that. So I see what's going on. I understand at least Auburn Elementary, and I'll be making out to the other sites eventually as well. Thank you.
All right. With that, it is 8:29 and this meeting is adjourned.
Feel free to stick around for round 2.
We have a special board meeting. We will convene here in just about a minute. Is 8:32, and we will call this special board meeting to order. And Superintendent, if you'd please call the roll.
Absolutely. Trustee Wedge,
Present?
trustee Brickler,
Present.
trustee Grigsby,
Present.
President Holt,
Present.
and trustee Ross, absent.
And trustee Brickler, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
And do we have any, oh, I'm sorry. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. And is there any public comment on the agenda item tonight? Seeing none, we'll move right to item 4, the approval of sunshine proposal from AUSD to the AUTA.
So whenever we're in negotiations, government code requires that we take a proposal forward in terms of our sunshine. So this is our initial proposal for reopeners in the collective bargaining agreement between AUTA and Auburn Union School District. The sunshine proposal is attached and staff recommends the sunshine proposal is approved as written. Any questions?
No, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the sunshine proposal.
I'll second it.
Before we do that, I just want to briefly mention this is something the superintendent had discussed, and then I think it was just an oversight that it didn't get put on here. It was even on earlier drafts
Yes.
of the regular board meeting.
I will say, I was going to say something and then I didn't because I figured you all wanted to go home, but I will say, when you make a mistake, I think you should own it. This was mine. When you know better, you do better. So this won't happen again. But after many times of going over the board agenda and having the sunshine agreement ready to go, somehow I inadvertently missed it. So our solution to that is that you can add within the 72-hour window. So we had to hold a special session, hence why we are here tonight. So there you go.
Thank you. All right. So with that, there's a motion to approve item 4A and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. It is 8:34 and this meeting is adjourned.